fix, Band-Aid solution to get it done tomorrow is to put up the no overnight parking.
Section 80.69.4 of parking is about parking of oversized vehicles. It was passed in 2013. It was passed in 2013, so it's a current ordinance. And it says vehicles in excess of 22 feet or over 84 inches of height, but if there's signage, can't park between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. I brought this up to your staff just to let you know.
Okay, what was DOT's response to it though? Not my staff, but DOT.
Well, I gave it to your staff because and Megan and others have a copy of this.
So let me get back to you on that. A lot of the things that I've got to get it in context. Where is it applicable? Under what conditions is it applicable? You can pull out an ordinance. You've already read off the dot, number, dot, number. So under what context is it applicable and allowable? And under what street conditions? Those are all the things we've got to look at. Not every ordinance fits every single street. It's crazy. We have streets we don't even own. Topanga is not a city street. Does anybody know that? State street. You know who's responsible for maintaining it? City. Anyway, and you know, they won't let us. It's a weird thing. Every single street has one of these issues. Have you guys driven down Porter Ranch to get on the freeway and you see the K-rail that's all broken up because the cars keep hitting it? They think the street goes through to Montero Estates and they just ram right into the K-rail and it's all broken up. Somebody earlier showed me a picture of a white truck teetering on the K-rail because there's no sign. So if you don't know the street, you're trying to get on the freeway, God forbid you're impaired, but you don't know this, and you just keep going straight, it looks like it goes through, and everybody keeps hitting that K-rail. Something like 50 million pieces now, if you've seen that K-rail. The big cement blocks, you know how much of what it takes to break one of those things up? In any event, we wanted to put just a sign, warning, no street, closed. It's Caltrans property. They said no, they'll do it. When? We've asked for 6 months. So I told DOT to just go out there and put the sign up. They can't. It's Caltrans property. It's insane. We'll look into that one and see, Pat, exactly where it's applicable to. I know my staff did say they were doing that. I think Tanya told me she got it from you as well, or she had it from somebody else. Tanya told me she's got it. Okay. So we've actually gone out there with our senior lead officers. We've knocked on the doors. We've talked to some of these folks. They don't want to live in their cars. They don't want to be there. Contrary to popular belief, a lot of people think people don't want help. They do. And they're looking for help and alternatives, and we're trying to bring some of that help to them. It's a process. In the meantime, I need some help and some direction on what you guys would like me to do, and maybe working with the HOA and letting me know if they want to take up a vote of putting up that. We'll certainly research that issue, Pat. Don't be surprised that if it turns out we can put those signs up there, but then we're not allowed to put them perhaps on Cessnon, or I won't say here because there's no parking on Cessnon, but in other areas of Porter Ranch there are, or putting up all the way up Tampa above Rinaldi. There are places, in certain places you can park. Don't be surprised if we do that. They just go, okay, no problem, start their engines and move up a block or two. It's what keeps happening, so it's very complicated. There are plenty of places for them to park their vehicles. Trust me, it's just moving it. They're not going to just go down the drain. It's a problem. They're going to move. They keep doing that.
Yeah, but on Cessna, there's no parking. Okay. On Porter Ranch Drive, there's no parking. On Mason, there's no parking.
Correct.
There's parking on Tampa. You know, we need to address that street.
Yes.
It sounds like you're looking at a global solution globally, and
We do.
at this point look at affordable housing for everyone. There's no way to do it. We have the biggest one in the valley, and I'm sure your waiting list is now yours now. You would also have to look at how much is it going to cost in enforcement to send guys out there ticketing and towing and all that sort of thing. Is there not a possible alternative or some sort of short-term, maybe city property that's not currently being used?
Great idea.
Where you redirect these individuals and
Yes.
provide sanitation and say,
So we're looking at that. That's a great one. Thank you for bringing that up. So we've just started a committee for the first time, an ad hoc committee on homelessness in the city of Los Angeles to deal with these very issues. I will let you know that for whatever reason, your favorite store right down the street, almost everywhere in the country, what they do is they allow RV parking overnight. It's their right to do that. Walmart is well known around this country for doing that. They could, we don't have any control, it's private property, it's their own parking lot, and they own the center. They own their portion of it, their portion of parking. They could open it up as they have all their other Walmarts. We're looking also at churches throughout the city, religious institutions, where a lot of religious institutions have done that, where they open up their parking lots at night and allow folks to park there at night. And so that's become a popular short-term solution. It also hopefully embraces them into the faith-based community, some faith, any faith, to try to get, because we're really big on working with faith-based organizations in trying to get them, some folks help, because their connectivity to programs is phenomenal, as Paula will tell you and many others will tell you. And so if you all remember, right after the earthquake and then after the Korean church here was built, there were 2 motorhomes for years and years and years and years, those big motorhomes that were in the parking lot. Those are people that lost their homes in earthquakes, and the church let them stay there. You know how many complaints we got about it? None. So we're looking at exactly that, and shared space. A lot of conditions and restrictions on public spaces, public parking lots, and religious institutions don't allow that overnight parking. So we're looking at changing some of the city laws to see if that's a reasonable solution. I think people would welcome that, knowing full well that while this church or synagogue might be across the street from their home, that these are people, and we don't want them just on the street, but maybe there's an opportunity for them to get help too. So it is looking at a global solution, but a quick fix as well. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. Those are all the things we're looking at in the new ad hoc committee on homelessness, is how to deal with that very issue. And so we're looking at those opportunities. We have a lot of commercial centers as well, that, you know, supermarkets and the like, where you drive by there at night and the parking lots are empty. And those could be great possibilities, but they're not allowed. And so we're looking at doing that very thing. And so anyway, those are the struggles we're dealing with. We have these conversations daily, and so we're trying to do that as well. I want to thank you all again for sitting through not only this, and I know you can probably hear in my voice I get a little emotional and frustrated over this issue too, because I'm out working with a lot of nonprofits and organizations right here in our backyard, right here in our neighborhoods. I've been the president of YMCA and worked with families here in Porter Ranch who, believe it or not, you drive by and you think they're living in $1 million home and they're a year behind in their mortgage. They've strung it along and the sheets are on the windows because they couldn't afford drapes. You have no idea that what some of the very families in our communities are struggling with. And so while I'm trying to spend a lot of my hours building phenomenal shopping centers and working to build the new park and the dream of what we all want, I'm also working on the flip side of it with people that are living on the streets and under bridges in our very community, and trying to help them too. And so there's this constant balance, and it's very rewarding when you do and are able to, whether it's improve property values, build beautiful schools, work with wonderful people in the community and do these incredible things and great projects. At the same time, work with other elements in society that are living in the shadows with us, and trying to help them. And so I appreciate your patience in walking through this, and now give you a little bit of insight into when making the decision, it's not just about, hey, we're tired of them, get rid of them. And so hopefully I've opened up some thought in mind that it's complicated. There's no easy overnight solution. And if you affect and impact one person and you try to solve it, you affect and impact somebody else. And so there's this balance, and I think we all have a responsibility for it. I really appreciate that you stuck around through that for this, and I hope you understand that I really do care about this as everything else I do. And I want to thank you again for sticking it out through this, and we'll continue to work with you on all this issue and any other issues. So thanks again. I'm going to take
Thank
off to go
you.
see my
Thank
kids.
you.
So thank you.
George, are you still here? George? Yeah, I had a speaker card for George and Adrian, and they got a chance to speak. There's one more speaker card, and then we're going to go to the last vote of the evening, and I'm going to table the reports tonight. Elliot, are you still here? Okay, then we will hold that too. So the last action item that we are going to address tonight is item number 7. And we are going to vote on recommendation from the Land Use Committee.
Thank you. Yeah, once we, I'm gonna, let me go to the motion first and then, yeah.
Yeah, motion and second, then we'll go to discussion and questions.
We recently had a meeting and we decided to recommend to the board to approve the concept of this plan and write a letter of recommendation to the appropriate departments. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you.
So now we're going to go into discussion, and Pat, go ahead and ask your question.
John, my only concern is what is going to keep the apartment dwellers from parking overnight and perhaps a larger vehicle overnight in the new parking that would be behind the theater. That would be, they could just walk to their. Okay, that was my question.
So the way that the project, so the question is parking and how do you prevent, I guess, let me see if I can rephrase it. How do you make sure that you don't have a situation where the residents park in the retail center? Is that
Yeah.
well, okay. So a couple of different ways. One is that the resident parking for the housing element is gated, right? So it's got its own gate. So you already have a secured parking for the residents who live there. You're not going to have gates, although you might have seen in the video that it looked like they were gates. Those are not. So you'll have gated parking. So it's more secure to park in the multifamily, in that housing side. You'll also have garages, and there was a discussion in a different context about people using garage for storage. But we're going to plan for some oversized garages, and we think that it'll encourage people to actually use them for their vehicles. There will be covered parking over there. There won't really be covered parking in the community, in the neighborhood kind of town center area. So the parking, first of all, they're disincentivized because parking over there is better. If you live there, you've got a much better parking situation than you would have in the retail center, where you're just cars in the middle of a retail center. So we're also making sure that we are providing enough resident and guest parking spaces where that's not going to happen. So part of it is just creating the supply so that you don't necessitate people parking down there. And so what we're working hard to do is make sure that parking and the amount of parking we have and how it's situated and how convenient it is and how secure it is, it'll all prevent that from happening. Now, might someone drive their car from their apartment around the block to get to that center, have a nice dinner, have a couple glasses of wine, and decide that they don't want to drive back and leave their car there? Maybe, but we've also designed it where just go ahead and walk. Don't bother driving. So we think that we're, as much as we possibly can, mitigating that risk. And Doug and I work together, and he's on the housing side, and I'm on the retail side, and we've got a great complementary going together. So I hold him accountable to make sure that he's got enough parking too, so that it doesn't impact our tenants. So.
All right.
Can we do no overnight parking? Would there be any reason to have overnight parking in the center?
Part of that might depend on whether there are any tenants whether they might park in the back, I don't know whether it's a delivery vehicle or something like that. So we can look into it. I mean, I think it, part depends on what what the needs of the center are. And, you know, because we're gonna own the whole thing, we're gonna restrict it, we have the ability to have restrictions. And sort of like security, I think you create and modify your restrictions as you learn what you need to do, and if there's a problem that comes up, you're able to adapt to it. Luckily, it is a private parking lot, so while we have to there's legal requirements to post if you're going to cite or tow vehicles, we have a little bit more ability to control how that's going to be used versus just being on a public street.
My question is, you kind of answered it, that it's going to be private, won't have the same problems that we just experienced the last 20, you know, I have a condo and I have 4 cars and but what I want to ask is, if you have restaurants where people spend 2 hours with cocktails, movie theaters where it's maybe 3 hours when you count walking to and from and getting your... Those are 2 to 4 hour events versus an hour or a 45-minute Ralph's jaunt.
Right.
So do you count those times of 2 or hours when you do parking spaces? Because it's apples and oranges. Before they had this large church parking lot for Shapell rebuilt, I did my grocery shopping in Ralph's and you could never get a spot because of the church parking. So if it's a longer stop destination center, you have to add that in and make another factor of parking because they're going to be there 4 hours.
No, that's a good point, and you know, and that comes oftentimes from necessity and a dialogue with the tenants as well, because you really want the parking to be available for customers. The tenants want it too, right? So they want a turnover of parking. So there will be areas where we're not going to really have a lot of restrictions, because if you go out and you have dinner and you see a movie, you're going to be there for a number of hours, and so that's going to be, you know, a good portion of it where we don't want to restrict it. There'll be other areas where whether it's in front of the grocery store or you know near other shops, we want to limit any parking that's intended to be assigned to any one tenant, but you can limit it to timed parking. So in front of the grocery store, for example, they will tell us, we don't want people to park over here and go to the theater. So can you do 2-hour parking or 90-minute parking, whatever, you know what? And so I think through kind of an evolution of the plan and an evolution of the tenants and where they're located, you know, we are able to kind of craft a strategy that fits with the plan without unnecessarily restricting the parking. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to chop up the parking and create a sense of where you have assigned parking, where you as a customer aren't welcome unless you go to the one space that your store, you know, is assigned. So we don't want to do that, but there's certainly ways we can adapt to, you know, the need to you know, kind of encourage people not to park where they're not supposed to park. You know, and similarly, employees, you know, you work an 8-hour shift, you don't want to go out in the middle of your shift and move where your car is parked. So, you know, so those are things that, again, as a landlord, and the fact that we're going to own this whole center, you know, we'll have a seat at the table that, you know, establish those rules as we need to.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the stakeholders? Yes.
I guess this is probably written in stone, but I'm kind of disappointed that the housing at the center is going to be leased housing. Because I've lived in the valley since 1962. I've lived in Porter Ranch since 1985. And to create a community where people can age in place, and I think a lot of people here are doing that. Once you get, well, the wind will never go away, but it's just, you know, it would have been nice to have been able to like downsize into a situation like that where everything is walkable, and we don't really have anything like that in our community. So I was personally very disappointed to learn that that's just going to be leased housing, and I also think that it doesn't keep people within the community. It's adding another element of kind of transience to the community, and I think a lot of the people coming to this center are going to be the people who come from points east to come
and they're gonna go, oh, there's